For your next date night or client breakfast, whether you're heading to the airport or your anniversary, no matter the event, black is always in style. The all-new Uber Black now offers premium vehicles, highly rated professional drivers, and even the ability to request a quiet ride. Uber Black. Predictably premium.
I'll say this for him, he's consistent.
He's been so consistent all year.
Not the taste, consistency.
Consistently, yes.
Consistency!
Thanks, losers.
Welcome back to another edition of the Fantasy Football Consistency Show. I am your host, Bob Lung, here from Big Guy Fantasy Sports. We're going to talk consistency, as we always do. And on the other side of the glass, as they say on Fantasy Sports Radio, which cracks me up, is my man, Ron Rigney. Ron, what's happening?
What's going on, man? Just getting in the swing of things. We're drafting today. Like, we are drafting the last couple days. It feels good,
nuts.
Man.
It's a good thing my boss thinks I'm working a lot because it's man. Good thing I have dual screens at work, obviously, because I'm an accountant. You have to have them. I really could have used a third screen today because between the Scott Fish Bowl, the Couch Tomato Invitational Auction, which we're going to talk about that a little bit too, because that's a unique one. We gotta kind of throw out. We'll try to remind me to fit that in near the end, but. We were going to do rookie breakouts and rebounds, but you know what? Today is Scott Fish Bowl day. It started yesterday. You, me, Kobe, we're all in the Scott Fish Bowl. It is the ultimate, when it comes to mass, the King's Classic is the quality versus quantity. I'll say that, and I'll probably get reamed for it if somebody's listening to the show. But the Scott Fish Bowl is quality and quantity at mass. I think it's close to 1,500, at least 1,200 to 1,500 people are in this thing. It is burning up Twitter. It's been trending for the last couple of days. It's absolutely nuts. Scott Fish does an amazing job. I don't know how he has a real job, family, wife, kids, life, sleep, and puts this all together. Just does a great job, and we tip our hats to Scott every year. But the amazing thing is that he does all this, but when it comes right down to it, it's all about the kids and the money. Last year, this thing and everything attached to it raised $40,000 for Toys for Tots. They were buying gifts out, just tons of gifts, made so many kids happy at Christmas time. So glad to be a part of it. This year I gave away anybody in the Scott Fish Bowl who wanted a free PDF copy of the Fantasy Football Consistency Guide. It's just a thank you to people and just sharing the love. And, so it's been a great time with the Potathon with Sal Lito and those guys. They raised $6,000 alone in just that in 24 hours. So, nice. Ron, this is your first year. We're glad to get you in this. How are you feeling so far? I know you're a little bit farther than me. You're in round 7, but is this nuts or what, man?
It's awesome, and it's consumed me the last 2 days. And I'm kind of like you at work last night. I'm checking my phone constantly and trying to find sly ways to have my phone out and make picks and see if I'm on the clock and all of that. But just insane, but so much fun. And it's just cool, like I said, to get in the swing of things because this is kind of the first taste of actual drafts we've had. We've done some mocks throughout the summer, but we're getting to that point where we're actually drafting them for real now. And so it's just, it's constant. There's constant. We created a Twitter group for our league and there's constant updates and just, people razzing people already. And it's already a good time. And we're, like you said, we're a little bit further than you. I think we're kind of getting into round 8 here.
Right.
But, we're getting into that point where we got to make some tough decisions. And, we'll definitely talk about the scoring format and all that. But, yeah, it's so much fun. And I always and we'll talk about the scoring format and Couch Tomatoes as well. But it's just cool to do these different types of drafts, that are arranged in a little bit and have these different multipliers and things. And it makes it cool and it makes it fun. It makes it not boring.
Yeah, and, there's nothing wrong with your typical league, and I get it. We all are in leagues that we're going to draft in August, and we're certainly going to have plenty of those to do in August, for sure. But it's just fun to be able to kind of get involved in a draft. And especially something like this where there's so many people in it, and everybody knows everybody, and if you don't, you now do. Like you said, the chat rooms, they created a chat room for Pick 107, and I kid you not, I don't know how my phone hasn't caught on fire because these people are nonstop. It's one of the best. I mean, chats. I can't keep up with it. I'm assuming nobody in Pick 107 has a job. Because it's nonstop. I mean, I turn on my phone in the morning, and I don't know how many messages are just burning through them. My wife's like, "Is your phone okay?" Because it feels like it's going to fall off the shelf, But let's talk about the Scott Fish Bowl. So the Scott Fish Bowl started a number of years ago. I think this is the 5th or 6th year. I know I've been in it, I think, since the beginning, maybe since the 2nd year. This is my 4th or 5th year. Every year Scott puts us on. The idea was to not only do this and have this amazing event, but also to raise money for Toys for Tots, which is what his thing is. It's called Fantasy Cares, fantasycares.net. If you're so inclined, please go out, donate, even if it's $10. Just give to it. This is all going to Toys for Tots. None of this money goes to any person. This is 100% going to the kids. So please do that. If you're listening, do it for me. In fact, if you do it, I'll tell you what, anybody who's listening to the show, if you go out and make a donation of at least $10, all right, and you send me the screenshot, whether it's on my Twitter, by email, Bob at _Lung on Twitter, or Bob at BigEyeFantasySports.com, and you send me the screenshot that you donated the money, I'll send you a free PDF of the guide. So at least you have a guide. And then if you want to go out and buy it on Amazon and get the full copy or whatever, that's great. But I will give you a free guide. I'll email it to you. Just email me or hit me up on Twitter. I'll give it to you because we want to raise money for this cause. And if anything I can do to help, that'll do it. And if you give $50, send me that, and I'll give you a free VIP access for the whole year. How about that? So there you go. You got 2 chances to get some really cool Big Guy Fantasy Sports and consistency stuff. So, but like we said, every year Scott changes the scoring. And it's not just typical, quote, PPR stuff. We're talking this year, it's not only 6 points for passing touchdowns for quarterbacks. If the quarterback rushes for over 50 yards in a game, they get a 5-point bonus. If they throw for over 300 yards in a game, they get a 5-point bonus. But here's the kicker. Interceptions, -4. That is a kick in the nuts for you people who are out there all excited about getting Jameis Winston. I love Jameis Winston. I'm going to have him in a lot of leagues where it's -2 for interceptions. Not this one. Or -1. But not in this one, man. I had the chance to get him, and I was like, no. Oh, no. I'm not taking that chance. This guy throws a lot of interceptions. You're going to throw a lot of yards, probably going to throw a lot of touchdowns. Too many interceptions. That's a net 2, baby.
An additional -2 if they return it for a TD as well.
Oh, so right. So you could actually throw a touchdown, then throw a pick 6 and have 0 points.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's the quarterbacks. We just got started. So running backs, if they rush for 50 yards, they get a 5-point bonus. Other thing else the same, 1 point for every yard. So 1 or 10 points for every 10 or whatever it is. 1 point for every 10 yards. Sorry. 1 point for every 10 yards. It's PPR for receivers. I'm sorry, for running backs for catching. But 50 yards rushing is 5 points bonus. 50 yards receiving is a 5-point bonus. So, yes, Christian McCaffrey was a god last year. I think he was second in total points behind some of the quarterbacks. Quarterbacks got a lot of points. And then, of course, 6 points for, catching or rushing a touchdown as well. So that's running backs. Wide receivers pretty much the same, PPR. Tight ends pretty much the same, except for one thing. They get 1.5 points per reception, where everybody else gets 1. Oh, and by the way, running backs, quarterbacks, wide receivers, and tight ends all get, is it 1 point per first down?
It's like a half point.
Is it half point per first down?
Yeah.
Okay, so they get a half point for every first down. So if it's 3rd and 2 and Julian Edelman catches the ball for 3 yards and a first down, he gets 1 point for the catch. He gets 0.3 and then he gets another. I'm pretty sure it's 1 point for first down, because somebody said that basically in that scenario he would get 2.3 points for that catch. I think it's 1 point for first down.
I don't know. I got it open here, and it says rushing first downs, half point each.
Oh, what about receiving?
And same thing for receiving, half point each.
Well, then somebody lied. Okay, but anyway, so he gets 1.8 points for that instead of just a 1.3. So getting that extra half can add up. And a guy like Julian Edelman, I think, is a great pick in this thing because, let's be honest, on third down and 7, who's Brady looking to? He's looking to Edelman. So those are the kind of guys that are going to be beneficial in this system. So, Ron, your draft so far in your league, so the theme this year was all about video games. And Scott always picks a theme that has lots of choices. So good job this year. He picked the video games. My division is the real sports division. So there's that's the conference. The 5 divisions are John Madden, Bo Jackson, Tony Hawk, Mike Tyson, and Michael Vick. I'm in the Bo Jackson division because I love Bo Jackson. Now you are in the Nintendo Classic, so tell everybody what your conference is and then your division.
Well, we get the Nintendo Classics Conference, which is very cool. I think everybody knows the classic guys here we're going to talk about. So I'm in the Fox McCloud division, if you remember Star Fox. Mm-hmm. We got the Donkey Kong division, the Kirby division, the Pikachu division, and, of course, everybody's favorite that they love to hate, the Duck Hunt Dog division.
Duck Hunt Dog, I love it. So anyway, so that's the 2 conferences. And there's other conferences. There's, I want to say, 100 divisions. 20 conferences, 5 each. I think that's how it's all working out. So that's why I think it's 1,200, because somebody said that. But anyway. Oh, one thing I forgot to say at the beginning of the show. We are still part of the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network. So don't forget that. So check out Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network. There's lots of great shows on there as well. So make sure you get into that. Also, if you're listening for the first time, make sure you go out and get your Fantasy Football Consistency Guide. It's out there on Amazon if you want the hard copy. And then come back, of course, you get the VIP upgrade for only $10 at the site with the special coupon code in the guide. And, of course, we'll talk about this at the end as well. But don't forget about the 2019 Midwest Fantasy Football Conference. That is in Canton, Ohio, Sunday, August 18th, noon to 6. Go to MidwestFFExpo.com. Use code BIGGUY where it says buy tickets, and you can save $5 off every ticket you buy. So don't forget to do that as well. Anyway, so I got to do all those announcements. So back to the thing. So why don't you kind of walk through what pick you had, where your strategy has been, what you're seeing in this draft, because the other key about this draft is the roster construction. It is super flex, so there can be 2 quarterbacks as a flex. So you can start 2 quarterbacks. The minimum starting is 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 receivers, 1 tight end. There's no kickers and there's no defense. But there is 4 flex spots. One of them can be a quarterback. That leaves 3 extra, then 4. So you could actually have 6 wide receivers, 2 quarterbacks, 2 running backs, and a tight end as your starters. So that's where this really gets real at that point in time. So, again, the scoring, really benefits the quarterbacks. And then when you got 2 quarterbacks for each one, now you've also got that scenario. So quarterbacks are flying off the board early, and then it kind of comes and goes in a wave. So why don't you talk about where you started from, Ron, what your pick was first round, what your strategy was, and then what it ended up being, because it never works out the way you wanted it to go.
No, and this is a classic case, and I think for everybody, I don't think, and at least I know in my chat room, it was a case of everybody's just kind of letting this thing come to them. So I think at this point, everybody's strategy has been crumpled up and thrown in the trash can in the corner of the room.
Let me ask you this: did you try any mocks at all?
I didn't, because I felt like I would do better if I didn't do that, because I felt like
you were. And I tried to tell the people in my chat room to not do it, but they couldn't stand it. And I said, you can do all the mocks you want, and I'm going to tell you right now that when that draft starts, it will go completely in the toilet. I said, now you might get your first pick, because everybody was kind of at 107 hoping to get Kelsey to fall to them. And I said, and it may. and you might get Kelsey. But then that's where basically it really goes to hell in a handbasket because you really can't predict what the rest of the people are going to do because of the weird format, because of the weird scoring. So anyway, I'll go back to you. And so you were pick number, you said 2?
Yeah, I got second pick. And with the mock thing real quick too, and I do this, and you probably do the same thing as well, and I do this a lot for baseball and a lot of the mocks that I'm in. I go into each mock wanting to try something different. Like in baseball, I might go into a mock saying, okay, I'm going to draft a closer early, or I'm going to, I'm going to draft starting pitching early. I'm putting a premium on that. So you don't know what everybody else is thinking anyway. This could be somebody's 6 different scenario in the mock. So, I'm kind of like that with all of them. So I picked out of the number 2 spot, and, it was one of those things I kind of figured that Saquon Barkley was going to go number 1, and I went ahead and pre-drafted my first pick so we kind of get the thing rolling here. And about 5 minutes before the draft started, I was kind of like, you know what? I forgot to put Barkley there just in case something happens. So I went in about 5 minutes before we kicked off, and I ranked them Barkley, CMC, Zeke Elliott. Zeke Elliott goes 1. I ended up getting Saquon Barkley, which was kind of a nice surprise. I was happy to get him. Wouldn't have been upset with any of the 3 there at the second pick. Our first round, you mentioned the tight ends, you mentioned the quarterbacks. We had Travis Kelce go off the board at pick 5. And then a little bit later, Mahomes went at pick 10. So that was kind of your first tight end and quarterback. And then right after that, Zach Ertz went number 11. Scott Atkins, our guy at Full-Time Fantasy, nabbed him at number 11 with his first pick. And then I knew at that point there was not going to be any of the big 3 tight ends getting back to me.
Right.
So just kind of go down my roster real quick. I ended up with Barkley in the first. I was able to nab Andrew Luck in the second round, coming back from the turn. Was able to grab Adam Thielen. They got Julian Edelman in round 4, Mark Ingram in round 5. Let's see. Tom Brady as my second QB because you mentioned, the different flex spots in round 6. And then that was right after, and I even messaged you guys this today. I took Mark Ingram, and I was looking at quarterbacks, and I'm like, man, I probably should have taken one there because after I picked Edelman, it was Ryan, Wentz. I got Ingram, and then you saw Cam Newton, Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, just quarterback run, Drew Brees, Jared Goff, Roethlisberger, Trubisky, Dak. I mean, basically everybody in that in those next couple of tiers. So I was happy that Tom Brady fell to me because I was starting to get a little bit sketchy as far as who was going to be there. And then round 7 went with Eric Ebron as my first tight end. Felt pretty good about that. I think as far as a PPR standpoint, moving the chains a little bit. And plus the touchdowns, I don't think he's going to maybe get 13 touchdowns again. I think 10 is definitely something to shoot for. Plus had a decent amount of receptions last year, so I felt pretty good about that. And then I'm just kind of sitting around. I think, in 3 picks here and just kind of waiting to see what falls to me, hoping a couple of receivers I got my eye on will fall to me as my wide receiver 3. But overall, I'm happy with what I got so far. Everybody is when they're drafting, although I have a couple people in the chat room that say they already hate their teams completely. So I don't know if they're just sandbagging a little bit or they really do hate their teams. But I kind of like where I'm at right now. No, definitely. I think the hilarious thing here and unique thing is just the first round, which in a normal draft, if we were just doing straight everything like we normally do, even if it's PPR, if you were drafting in a completely different league than I was, with a bunch of experts and fans and stuff, pretty much, I would say probably without question, 80% minimum would line up about the same. If not the same pick, at least in that round. Would you agree? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
But that's what's great.
I'll say there's a couple monkey wrenches thrown in there that, throw it off a little bit because of the scoring.
Right. But in this format, I can guarantee you out of the 100 leagues, I bet you there isn't 2 the same. Because like you said, 1, 2, 3, 4, I think went the same in both. Probably Barkley, Elliott, Kamara, McCaffrey. Whatever order, those 4 all went. Correct?
Well, I was just trying to see.
I mean, in the one you were in, right?
Yeah, that was ours. Well, right. Here's one where in a division, Kelce went first overall. Right. And I'm just saying, that just between us, because I heard you say that went that way. But then, like you said, in some, Kelce went first. I heard Mahomes going in the top 4. But yours went pretty similar. Your pick 5, you said, was Kelce.
Our pick 5 was Johnson, was DJ. Then pick 6 was Melvin Gordon for us. What was your pick 6?
It's essentially the same guys, just kind of in a different order here. Because at 5 we had Kelsey, 6 we had David Johnson, 7 DeAndre Hopkins, 8 was Melvin Gordon. So it's kind of the same combination, just in a little bit different order.
Well, but see, it right after let's say right after number 4, my 5 through 12 is completely different than your 5 through 12, because Melvin Gordon went 6th. I took Kelsey at 7. Guess what happened after that? Kittle and Ertz goes 8 and 9. So all three, the big 3 are gone by number 9 in our league. Then Dalvin Cook gets picked. Then Hopkins goes at 11, and Le'Veon Bell goes at 12. No quarterbacks yet. So yeah. So then
that's huge value for Hopkins as well.
Right, and Hopkins going as far as 11. So then the turn comes. The guy goes Gurley, then we go Chubb, then we go Mixon, then Connor, then Devontae Adams, and I'm at pick 206, and Patrick Mahomes is sitting there. I'm stunned at this point. I think I may have wet myself at that point, because I thought there was no hope. Now, I was going to get a quarterback there. I was assuming it was going to be Luck or Watson or Rodgers, and Mahomes falls. So at that point, I'm like, okay, so these guys aren't real up on the quarterback scenario here. So I take Mahomes because, well, you got to. Then Beckham goes off the board. Then it goes Watson, Luck, Rodgers. So it was kind of funny. I kind of started the quarterback run and the tight end run at number 7, which was, to me, perfect, because if I can start a run, then by the time he gets back to me, then I might have a better choice at whatever the next one is. But then no quarterbacks went until basically the end of round 3. And then there was a big swing, 3 and 4, and then kind of off for 5. And then round 6, all the QB2s went. All the backups, the second quarterbacks went. So round 6, there was 7 quarterbacks drafted out of 12. So that's where we kind of stand now. My team is Kelsey, Mahomes, Devontae Freeman. I picked in round 3 because I really wanted a back that I could count on. You know, I could have taken Aaron Jones. I could have taken Kerryon Johnson. But I just felt like I know what I'm getting with Freeman. So did that. Came back around. Julian Edelman. I figured I needed to get at least one receiver, wide receiver 1. I could have chosen either Keenan Allen or A.J. Green, but I went Edelman just because of consistency, obviously, and the first down thing. So I took him. Round 5, you know, some people are questioning this pick. I went Chris Carson as my RB2 for a couple reasons. One, I love Carson this year. Not everybody does. A lot of people think Penny's going to replace him. But when I was really sorting the stats, Chris Carson in this scoring format last year was in the top 12. And if you go to points per game, because he missed a couple, he was actually 10th. So I'm like, how do you not get this guy? I can't imagine they're going to really reduce his role that much. I just don't see Rashad Penny having that much of an effect. And at that point, you know, the other guys are left are Sony Michel, Mark Ingram, Kenyon Drake. And, you know, I'm like, well, they're all solid players. I'll see if maybe they can come back to me in round 6. And obviously that was when the quarterback run went. So, you know, that's kind of where I'm at. I feel like the 7 spot is a nice spot to kind of watch what happens. It's more of a reactive than a proactive. Now, he was proactive with the quarterback and tight end run at the beginning of the rounds in the middle of round 1 and 2. But now I feel like there's enough of everything kind of done now. Everybody's got at least a tight end, or at least most. Everybody's got at least 1 or 2 quarterbacks. So the runs probably will stop. Now it's just going to be, you know, every round is going to be kind of not a crapshoot, but you really have to think, will this guy fall to me? And maybe if, you know, I've heard people say, well, geez, they were around 7 and Carson hadn't even went yet. Well, maybe I grabbed him a little early, but, you know, so kind of like what you've said so far in your picks, It's really much more difficult because of the whole layout and the whole setup. But I feel like now that the tight ends and the quarterbacks are kind of all in place, I feel like this will go a lot more like a regular draft now. What do you feel? Do you feel like that is all played out now, and it'll kind of go to a little bit more normal running back, wide receiver, back and forth, than trying to grab the quarterbacks or the tight ends, or do you think it still is kind of a crapshoot?
I think it's just going to be filling out your roster, and we kind of talked about it off air a little bit, looking at bye weeks and just accounting for that. And I know at least for me, I'm pretty set with what I have as kind of as far as my core guys, and I'm just going to kind of look to fill up the depth at the skill spots. I might look at a tight end later on. Might look at a third quarterback later on, depending what's there. But I'm not going to press. I'm not going to press for anything. I was kind of doing that a little bit earlier. I was going into like when I got Tom Brady at the end of round 5, was it? Round six. I was kind of pressing for a quarterback then, and that's the only time I've really kind of felt myself being desperate, hoping and praying that somebody was going to be there when it got to me with that big run we had on quarterbacks there in the 5th and 6th round. But other than that, I've just kind of let it come to me and pick the best player on the board just to kind of fill out my roster. But, like we were talking about as well, there's a couple of guys here and there that may not have 2 quarterbacks. You mentioned one in your division that has 0 quarterbacks at this point. And so they're going to be pushing for somebody. So, it just kind of depends upon roster construction. It just kind of depends upon what you have. But it's just going to be a lot of depth through here from this point. But like you said, too, it could also be a scenario where if you've looked at the rosters and you've looked at all the positions, you mentioned you can start 6 wide receivers. Maybe that's somebody's plan, and maybe they only have 2 right now, so they're going to hit wide receiver really hard the next 4 or 5 rounds.
Right.
So
I'm looking at some of the
on what you're looking at.
Right. I'm looking at some of the divisions, within the real sports is our conference, and here Court Smith from RotoViz, in his first 7 picks has 5 wide receivers. He's got Barkley, Evans, Antonio Brown, Stefon Diggs, Robert Woods, and Calvin Ridley, and Matt Ryan as quarterback. Nice start. I mean, obviously he's basically punting tight ends, I would feel like at that point. But then on the other side, you look and only 8 tight ends have been coming off the board. So there's still some hope there. But this draft you can look at and go, man, this draft actually went more, while it had its quarterback and everybody has had their quarterback scenario here, the other part of this is how people are structuring in different ways, whether they started off with lots of receivers or lots of running backs. There's a couple of teams here with 3 or 4 running backs on their team. It's just interesting. And the funny thing is, the amazing thing to me is every other division somebody picked Mahomes in the first round except mine. It's just really weird to me because I thought for sure Mahomes would go off the board early, but maybe they just all thought they were going to wait, and that worked out okay for me. As long as Mahomes turns out to be just as good as last year, or at least close, that's kind of my goal. And hopefully him and Kelsey will be throwing all day to him. But any other unique things? I know a couple of things that you said you were unique. I'll let you kind of is where some of these quote running quarterbacks are going in this draft. Which in a regular draft probably wouldn't go anywhere near this high. Tell me about your division and where some of these not great passers but much better runners are going in your league.
Well, and we talked about them just as far as from a consistency standpoint, what we kind of expect out of them. And in our round 5, we had Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson go at picks 5, 5, and 5, 7. Now, obviously, that's looking at the format, looking at the bonus for the passing or the rushing yards.
Right.
But kind of like I talked about, that's great to get that bonus. But at the same time, if you've got a rookie in Kyler Murray, if you've got a guy in Lamar Jackson that is a run-first guy, they brought in Mark Ingram. That's why I picked him so early, because I think he's just going to get the ball all day long. Lamar Jackson could be a guy that he could get you 75 yards, maybe a touchdown. But I also look at him maybe throwing for 150, maybe 175 yards, a couple picks, a touchdown. So, we talked about if one of those picks is a pick 6, you lose 6 points. So that negates, what he's doing from the rushing standpoint. So you saw these guys going around 5, and in more shallow leagues, these are 2 guys that may not even get drafted.
Right. No, it was nuts. I'm trying to find, see if I can still, I thought I put it together now. Got to remember where I left it. But I did a little thing, and I'm trying to. Is that it? No, that's not it. Dang. I did a little like predictive, like kind of what the guy. Oh, here it is. So I just did. This was based on last year's numbers. Oh, that's not it either. Dang it. Where I was looking at the, how many times players threw over 300 yards and how many times they rushed for over 50 yards and how that would fall out from the standpoint of with the bonuses they would have earned. And to nobody's surprise, I'm kind of doing this off my head because I'm trying to remember what it was. But, obviously Mahomes was the highest with 55 total bonus points earned. Now, that's respectable, but again, that's only 11 out of the 16 games that he got 5 extra points. There might have been games he got, 10 in he might have got 10, but then there was weeks he didn't get the rushing. But like Lamar Jackson got, I think, 25 bonus points last year for the 5 games he rushed for over 50 yards. But guess what? Drew Brees had 30 because he had 6 games where he threw for over 300 yards. So I just don't see how people are looking at that and going, oh, man, I got to get Lamar Jackson before a Jared Goff or Roethlisberger or Breeze or any of those kind of people. Yeah, he's going to have a couple of those games or a few of those games. There's no question. But he'll never rush for 50 and throw for 300 in a game. And if you rush for 51 yards, you rush for 200 yards, you still only get 5 bonus points. So that's why I'm kind of like you, kind of looking at this going, I don't get it. What are you people thinking here? It's not, there's very few guys, maybe Deshaun Watson, maybe Mahomes, maybe Aaron Rodgers. I don't even know if Aaron Rodgers runs that much anymore. That might rush for 50 yards in a game, scramble and take off on a big run and throw for 300 as well. But it's so rare. I think there was only a few of those guys, Cam doesn't even run that much anymore just because, he's getting hurt and he's trying to scale back. Maybe Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson was up there with about 30 or 40 points where he had the 300 and then 50 yards in a game. So you're right. It just doesn't make any sense that these guys are going that high. I mean, I get it. You got to get a QB2 because you can start 2, but I just don't understand it. And like you said, the consistency of that being done is even worse. Because again, if you scored 30 points, which I think was the 4th highest, in tiers, it was the 4th highest tier, was this group of 30. That's only 6 games that they earned a bonus out of 16. Mm-hmm. It's not that big.
No, and the thing is, but the other thing is, it kind of what I thought about when we were talking about getting down to these parts of the draft, when you kind of got a lot of the big names out of the way and you've got kind of your core group, it's when you start to kind of dive into that draft plan that you had. Not necessarily maybe you're going to get a certain player or a certain position in a certain round, but you're starting to get your guys as you go down the list. Like I'm queuing up my guys right now, right, and I'm looking at receivers I want. I'm definitely sifting out a lot of guys that I definitely don't want, even if they do fall to me at a great value, just because I don't think they're going to be very good. But the opposite side of that is I'm bumping some guys up that I think are going to be solid players that I want to try to get. And so maybe that's kind of the looking at, they're looking at Kyler Murray, they're looking at Lamar Jackson and hoping, if they can keep the turnovers to a minimum, maybe they will end up panning out and being able to put up with a couple 300-yard games with those 50-point bonus or the 50 rushing yard bonuses.
Right, definitely. It's just, it's just one of those things where you just have to kind of really look at, one of the things I really did was look at the scoring method this year's scoring method with last year's stats, which they have on the site, and looking at the points per game and looking at where the quarterbacks fall. And the top 40 total points leaders last year, I think probably 2/3 of them are quarterbacks. So you really don't have to reach too high. Now, Patrick Mahomes, of course, was 100 points ahead of everybody else. That's where his value comes into play. So even if he drops down 10, 15%, he's still number 1 or number 2. So that's why, hey, getting him only 2 picks ahead of Watson, Luck, and Rodgers, or, 2-3 picks ahead of them, I feel like, okay, that's pretty good value. I didn't overdraft him by picking him in the first round. And if he would have went in the first round, that's fine. I would have taken Watson, Luck, or Rodgers, at that spot. So, it's like you said, the unique roster construction certainly makes it fun, but it certainly makes it challenging. And when you're competing against 1,200 people, risk are going to have to come through, and that's, I'm sure the guys that won last year were the guys that took, CMC in the second round, Patrick Mahomes in the 12th round, all those kind of guys had to come into play, picked Robert Woods, and then had the usual studs to go along with them. That would have been the team. And I don't know what FF Stompy's makeup was, but I think I know for sure that I think he had Kelsey, Mahomes, and CMC on the team. So I'm sure that helped quite a bit. So any other thoughts on the Scott Fish Bowl? Certainly we'll keep you guys updated. Probably next week's show we should be probably close to done. I hope so. But if not, we'll be at least 2/3 done. We can kind of maybe kind of bring this up again. But I want to move to another league that we're in. So our good friend Mike Neese has put this league together for the last few years, and he also is part of, and I think Ron, you're in this too, the FanX auction draft. Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing is, it's the only one I've ever done, and there's 2 of them now, where it's a slow auction draft. And if you're sitting there going, okay, how does a slow auction draft work? Well, we're going to tell you. So here's how it works. All 12 teams in the league, when the auction starts, so it started today at 11, every person brings up only 2 players that they bring up basically as part of the auction. So basically 24 players should be cycling right now. And you put them in, you put in your starting bid. Of course, everybody puts in a buck because, we're all dumb. And then at that point, those 24 players are in an open, free-for-all bid. So if you see, Barkley at 22 and you go, man, I'm gonna bump you up to 25, you can. And the idea is, though, at some point, the bidding won't necessarily stop, but it'll kind of get to a point where people are like, okay, I'm not bidding anymore, and everybody decides they're not bidding anymore. But here's the key. They have to sit, and I still think this is way too long, but I get it, has to wait 18 hours at that bid to be accepted and you become the winner. So if it's 17 hours and 59 minutes and Ron's got Barkley at 35, I could bid 36 and start the clock again for another 18 hours. Mm-hmm. Now, for you, those of you people who just rolled their eyes and went, oh, dear God, I get it. At first, it kind of feels that way, that it's going to take forever. But once kind of the standards are set, because everybody knows what we've done this for a couple years now. Everybody knows that, a stud running back is probably going to be between, this amount and that amount. And, some people might bump it up 1 or 2. And, of course, there's lots of value and lots of bargains at the end. But basically, it is a slow draft or slow auction. The scoring method I don't think is all that unique or anything like that. But just doing this, Ron, you did this last year in FanX and Couch Tomatoes as well. Give us your thoughts on what you see. I mean, is there really a strategy, or do you just kind of go with the flow at the beginning and kind of wait to see where the, quote, standards are set for some of the bigger players?
Well, the only thing strategy-wise is when you see a guy that you want, you got to go get him. I mean, that's the thing I like about an auction. It's the only
right. Oh well, yeah, I love auctions.
100% control. Who you want to go get. As far as strategy for this, though, I don't know if it's kind of like we talked about with Scott Fishbowl. There's really not one. I mean, you just kind of see what's out there because you can kind of gauge it. Because we've got a couple of the big running backs out here right now sitting at a couple different dollar amounts, so it kind of gives you an idea. If you have, let's say Barkley is out here, I don't think we got Barkley and McCaffrey both out here. For example, if a guy, like, I'm trying to go down the list here, Might give you an idea of maybe what David Johnson's going to go for, maybe give you an idea of what Zeke Elliott's going to go for if they hadn't been nominated yet. So it does give you a little bit of an idea. Also kind of gives you a little bit of an idea as to what everybody's thinking and maybe where everybody's going to go. Like, for example, if we see any Texans nominated, we know who's going to go after those. That's our guy Colby. So we can always bid him up a little bit and kind of, get him to spend a little bit more money. But it's pretty cool. And when you first start doing it, the 18 hours does seem like a lot. But once you kind of get into this, it's actually kind of nice because, like, you can go to, for example, I would check my bids and maybe go to work, and then I can forget about it for a little bit because I know that as long as I don't have anything ending within the next 6-7 hours, I'm good. And then I can check it when I get done. So that's kind of nice as well. It's not, pressure to check your phone all the time if you're not able to do so. But it is a lot of fun.
Do you get the emails for every upgrade?
Yeah.
You do? Okay, so do I. So that's where, at least you can, if you have a phone and you get the emails, it kind of at least helps, like, okay, David Johnson just got bumped up to 35. Should I go 37, 36, where's Barkley at? Is it, so it does make it interesting. There'll be some bargains, like you said, people were like, you're just looking and going, man, can I let, like, for example, right now, Derrick Henry's sitting at $10. Now, other stud running backs like the big boys are in the 30s and 40s. Is that enough? Yeah, I mean, or should he be 15? That's the kind of stuff you got to think about because, again, like Colby, I think he's got the high bid on, like, I don't know, 6 or 8 guys here. Now, if he gets them all, that's great, but he could end up with like 5 running backs.
Yeah.
Right now, if nothing changes in 18 hours, or actually 15 hours, Colby will have James Conner, Le'Veon Bell, Derrick Henry, Aaron Jones, Christian McCaffrey, and Todd Gurley. So he could end up, if everybody was just a dick and just said, we're not going to he could end up with 6 running backs and only have $70 left for the rest of his team. It could happen. I don't think it will, but that's the kind of thing you got to think about because it's great to go and just bid all this money thinking, oh, somebody overbid me, but they might not. Mm-hmm. Now there's certainly some values. Like I said, I can't see Derrick Henry going for $10, but
yeah.
I could see Connor going for 30, Le'Veon going for 27. I could see, I don't know about Aaron Jones at 15. So it gets real interesting. So
well, and you kind of brought up another like strategy type thing with this as well. Is if let's say I nominated Saquon Barkley,
right?
Well, maybe you like another guy, just below that, and you don't know if you're going to get Barkley or not. And he gets nominated, then you have to kind of make some decisions. Do you go after both of them? Because like what you said just now, if it ends up that nobody else bids on that, are you happy with what you're going to get stuck with? So that makes it a little bit tricky, and it makes it a little bit fun there as well.
Well, the other thing that I always feel gets interesting in this thing too is, let's say, let's say for example, I've got David Johnson at 33 so far. So let's say, David Johnson's sitting there, and right below him is McCaffrey at 31. All right, so let's say David Johnson gets close. All of a sudden, some douchebag, with only an hour left, bids it up to, 45, and takes David Johnson that I was kind of counting on. Well, I'm going to automatically take that money I just lost or kind of gained back, and I may go back to the Christian McCaffrey who's going to go out in an hour, and I'm going to bid him up because now – he's much cheaper, and I can get him for 35 instead of 45 or whoever. So, that's when it gets kind of fun, but yet you get pissed off at the same time because you wait for 14 hours or, 16 hours, and you think, I'm almost there. I'm going to get this guy, and then somebody swoops in and bumps it up $2 or $3 in your hose. That's when it's fun, but it's frustrating too. And like you said, it seems like it takes forever, but it's just an interesting twist of doing it. So, all right, we got about a minute left here. So, as we said before, don't forget we're part of the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network. We'll be back next week. We'll definitely get into the RB breakouts and rebounds, but we just thought we'd put a special Scott Fish scenario together here. Also, again, Fantasy Football Consistency Guide. Get it on Amazon. When you get that, get the book. go back, get the VIP access for only a $10 upgrade. Saves you a ton of money, and you get all access all season long. And, of course, don't forget Fantasy Football the 2019 Midwest Fantasy Football Expo, Canton, Ohio, Sunday, August 18th. Be there, noon to 6. Ron will be there. Colby will be there. I'll be there. It's going to be great. We got 30 or more experts already signed up. We've got a live podcast stage for the whole 6 hours, and we have a main stage for 6 hours. We're going to do panel discussions, mock drafts, Q&As, talk about different strategies. It's going to be fantastic. You don't want to miss out. So as we head on out this week, keep an eye on us on Twitter as we do our Scott Fish Bowl. And again, we'll see you next week. Take care. God bless.
Johnny got a toy golf set when he was 3, and from that day on, he was hooked. All he wanted to do was golf, golf, golf. He'd be on the links before school, after school. All he ever wanted was to go pro. And then, one day, when he was holding his grandson and thinking about his 12 handicap, Johnny realized it just might not happen for him. But you know what did happen for him? He switched to Geico and saved a bunch of money on car insurance. So that was good, and so was hanging out with his grandson.
Technology Truths, brought to you by Geico.
Technology Truths.
Truth. Teenagers can communicate entirely in emojis.
How was the birthday party? Pizza slice, kitten, soccer ball, pineapple?
Truth. It's so easy to switch and save on car insurance at geico.com.
What are you talking about? Paperclip, shoulder shrug, high five, wizard hat? What?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.